Design thinking primarily talks about how you can capture the customer needs at the early stage of your process. Design thinking is an approach that actually will enable you to identify the core needs of the customer so that when you are able to ideate and design a solution that will help to meet the customer needs. So this also ensures, it's a very important point, it ensures the startups a success, right? Sometimes, you may adapt a certain set of different process that may not guarantee your success, but fairly the companies who have adapted design thinking process to derive a new solution or a new product, I think they have uh, touched the success, and also they have scaled. Let me spend maybe next 20-25 minutes, talking about some of the nuance of design thinking. Normally, the design thinking is a course being taught over a period of 3 months, that requires a lot of participation, a lot of exercise, a lot of analysis that need to be done, field study. But I'm 20-30 minutes, primarily giving a brief about what is design thinking, the phases of design thinking, and also some case studies that is actually in the market where they have used design thinking, how they become successful, and also I give some tips how we can get started and get your design thinking path forward in your organization. And primarily, design thinking is a process that enable you to solve critical, complex problems. And remember that design thinking is a process that will start with the problem, not with the solution. We always have a tendency, if you come across a challenge, immediately psychologically our mindset tend to a solution mindset, right? Okay, you come across a thing, you see some challenges on the road, suddenly someone will say that, okay, can I create an app, set an application which will tell where are the pits are there, where the roads are not good, then that will actually give back to the particular government department, so they can make corrections, right? Immediately the mindset jumps into the solution rather than actually analyzing the problem. But design thinking is a process that will set first, make you to define the problem. What is that problem that you're trying to address? What is the problem you're trying to solve? And remember, it is not a linear process, it is a non-linear process. So even when you derive a solution at a later point in time, you have to revisit again, is that solution is addressing my core problem? So and again, it's actually focuses on addressing the real customer needs. I will step into those slides as we progress through. It will talk about how you can reach your core customers based on a problem. You have defined a problem. Now, who are the problem that need to be addressed? And where is the problem this is happening? You need to go to that particular place and understand what is the real problem the customers are facing. Through that, you will able to identify the core needs, and that can be done in various methodologies. You can closely observe, you can have an interviews, you can have sessions, a lot of methods to identify those core customer needs. And ultimately, the design thinking, some of the key skills that require is applied creativity. You need to have that creative thinking mindset, because when I say creative thinking mindset, there's something called as a silo mindset. Silo mindset is what I think is correct. I have experience of 20 years. So based on my experience, this is what it will work, right? That is like a more of a silo mindset, a pursuit mindset. But design thinking, that will break that silo mindset. You need to have a broad mindset. The broad mindset, you need to come up with an open-minded approach, allowing that even someone who may not that educated like you or experienced like you, but that person may give you a fantastic idea, or that may person can actually throw up a great challenge in front of you which no one has thrown up, and that can help you to solve a bigger community problem. So it allows you to have that applied mindset of creativity. You need to apply a lot of concept development process, and again, innovation is a core component, and that will help you to identify the actual needs of customer. In a nutshell, design thinking is a human-centric problem-solving approach, and it is an iterative. Iterative means that you can improvise as you progress through. So it's not like a start to finish approach. You have to revisit every phase of the process, making sure that is that the problem that you're addressing, because that will enable you to fail fast. When you fail fast, actually it saves a lot amount of your effort and time. And particularly for startups, if you know that your product is not going to work and you know it much earlier phase of your startup, that is going to save huge amount of money and effort, and you can divert your thought process into the idea that can work and bring you to the success. So that's about, a kind of giving a very high level view about what is design thinking. And there are 5 phases of design thinking. And if you Google it out, these are the 5 phases that will come out. And I also try to capture the 5 phases, but in my other teachings, normally I use my 7 methodology approach. But for simplicity purposes, I've kept this, the 5-phase approach. The first and the foremost is empathy. The empathy is, once you empathize and go with the customer, then only you're able to understand what is the real pain of the customer, what is the real pain of the user. You sit in the boardroom, discuss among with your peers of 10, 15 people, and take their views and strategize, and you draw out a strategy path and a solution. The success may be 50% or maybe 20%, right? Always you go for a much percentage of failure. You have to go into the field. You have to go and meet those real customers, what the problem you are trying to address. Unless and until you go and meet them, you will have a different perspective. Trust me, you will have a different perspective. This is the biggest ask I give to all the startups. If you have not done that, if you are developing a product, if you have conceptualized something, ask your customers before even you conceptualize your solutions. You may have to redesign your solution because they will tell different stories. And they will give you the actual features for you to develop your solution. So understanding the user need is the biggest part of the design thinking process. And that is, again, the empathizing with the customers. And that will also allow you to explore the problem with various set of stakeholders. The various set of stakeholders could be dynamic. You cannot categorize your problem into one set of stakeholders. You may have a lot of unbiased stakeholders or unknown stakeholders. You may not even know, okay, this particular product may be helpful to them, right? So you have to broaden your stakeholder list as part of your discussions, as part of interviews, what you do. So that will help you to explore the problem in a more diversified and a wide range of assessment. I always give the example when you are doing this one, when you hold your hand like this is you are thinking about you, yourself, your team. But when you widen your hand, right, you are able to look and approach things in a multiple dimensions because you widen your hand and you have more space. That is the design thinking empathy. You have to widen your hand so that you can see your vision in a wide angle, and you will be able to identify the user needs in a much broader approach, so that you will be able to focus on the solution effectively. And this also helps you to identify certain things that even you don't know, right? Sometimes always we feel that I'm very firm, this will work, right? Because I put all my energy and effort. I personally feel that I'm expert in this field. I know that this will work. Yeah, that may work, but they may not also work. We have situations where certain things have worked, certain things have not worked. But you have to allow yourself that, let go your ego of your own individual nature and open your mindset on receiving the feedback from the ground. Once you receive those kind of the bottom feedback from the customers and the users, then you will know that certain things even you do not know, you will be able to discover there. Certain things, even your competitors do not know, you will be able to discover. That is where you will be able to create a very competitive and individualistic product solution that can differentiate yourself in the market. Some of the tools that you can use, field work. During this pandemic, it is not possible if you have to do on a field work, but field work is a great tool that you have to visit closer to the customers. I will also give some of the case studies. I will explain to you how the field work has transformed that particular companies. Observation is a very good art. Very closely if you observe, you will be able to understand some of the specific needs, core needs, and the latent needs. Latent needs is something like an unknown. You do not know that they have this need, right? You may perceive that, oh, okay, if I provide this kind of a concept or a solution, that may satisfy them, that may amplify their satisfaction level. So even you're understanding the specific needs, core needs and the latent needs. And interviews are very important. You can have some open-ended question, close-ended question. Always interviews in the design thinking is you let the consumers talk. So always you have to have an open-ended question and need analysis. And also some other method is ethnographic methods. Primarily the ethnographic methods is more of a direct observation. You can also do a lot of video recordings to their gestures, what they think, what they pursue. So you're able to understand about their body language. You can take some pictures around it. You can do some artifact analysis, and there are a lot of things. Primarily, it's about cultural setting. You need to understand the culture, because in India itself, every state has its own culture. So if you're launching a product or a solution, you need to understand about that cultural mindset. And if you're launching a global product, then for sure you need to know about the multicultural facets of the country and the globe, right? So that then your product will be highly successful when you take a launch a success rate. So once you have empathized, which means that once you have understood the customer needs, and by this process, you might have created tons and tons of materials, a lot of artifacts, a lot of statements, a lot of recordings, a lot of written notes that have gathered. Now, the next biggest challenge is you have to confine all the user needs into a problem statement. Because remember that you have to define the problem. Defining the problem, it is the key. Sometimes, normally what happens again here, the biggest bottleneck is the people will become very judgmental, right? They might have come across a user need, and suddenly what they will define is, instead of defining a problem, they will directly dictate the solution. Solutioning will come as a byproduct. It is not at the start of the process. So defining the problem is very important. How you can synthesize and convert the user needs into the problem statement. And there are various mechanisms. Normally, when I do my large sessions, I give examples of how the problem statements are defined and how to even define a problem statement, how not to define a problem statement. And there is a lot of exercises, the participants go through. But somehow I have to just give a small snapshot. You can apply this 4Ws approach. What is the problem that you're trying to address? Very clearly, you have to carve out. So you may have collected a lot of needs. So you can, kind of categorize everything into a kind of a theme or a pattern. And who is your target user? That, for whom you're trying to solve the problem. And most important thing is, where is the problem? Which location is the problem coming from, or where is the problem present? That is very important. That will also enable you to address that particular target group. And most importantly, you need to ask this question: why is it so important? Should I really need to address this problem, or will this problem, addressing this problem, will give me that edge, the benefit which I'm looking for? And if you are able to answer these 4 questions and categorize all your needs into these 4 baskets, then you're able to actually define what we call as a problem statement. So you can organize into the common themes. Then you will also be able to identify certain patterns that will arrive as part of this process. There are a lot of tools they use, like storyboard. Storyboard is storytelling. So you can actually, start with that story, where it's starting, then connecting the dots of all that story, the head of the story. Then you'll be able to find a story that is arriving out, and that will also help you to define the problem statement, defining personas and prioritization method. So assume once you have successfully defined the empathy and the definition of the problem, here is the most important thing, that is, ideation. Ideation is allowing the sixth nerve to think wider. Right? Remember, I was talking about in empathy, you should move away, set aside all your assumptions. You may have your own thought process, you may have your own assumptions. Sometimes you may have a strong feeling that, hey, this one will not work, right? I think respectfully keep that, but don't keep that as a blocker in this process. What you need to do is, you need to, like a river flows, right, without any obstacle. Like that, the thought process, the ideation has to flow. There should not be any blocker. Whatever the ideas that coming in to address a problem, again, you have to be very careful. You have to align your problem statements, and to that problem statements, you have to ideate the solution that you are trying to address. And there is no one solution. That is where it's a very key thing. There is no one solution. You can always go for multi-solutions. When you go for multi-solutions, the probability of success of your product is, again, higher percentage. So there are certain tools that you can use, brainstorming, and there are various techniques of brainstorming. Digital sketching, very important. I think you can actually use a lot of tools. Today there are so many digital sketching online tools are available. Time boxing, very clearly splitting the groups and boxing them and saying that you have to brainstorm and define and come with the solutions within that 15 minutes or 20 minutes. And multi-voting. Sometimes, if you don't get a consensus, you can go for the multi-voting, and whoever is voted high on the particular idea, that can be selected and gone for, and creative techniques. Prototyping. Now you have multiple solutions you have created. Now you don't need to develop a full product. Sometimes, some people may go wrong in developing a full functional product. That might, lead a lot of time and cost. This need to be very fast. So to develop a prototype, should not spend more than a week or 2 weeks. So most preferred method of developing a prototype is, using a paper model. So a lot of times, people sketch in the paper itself and show that this is what the solution we are looking at, this is what the product we are looking. Sometimes if somebody is developing an application or a digital product, right, what they do is they go for the wireframes, and they will show, and there are a lot of wireframes you can use mainly on the interactive methodologies. Adobe has a lot of tools, and similar to Adobe, there are multiple technologies and tools that are available. So you will not have the full functional features, but you will know that this is how the application is going to look, and this is how the features are going to flow, and this is how the end product is going to look, right? So use your time legitimately very well to define the prototype. And once you have the prototype, always ask this question yourself: does this solve your problem statement? You should connect the prototype into your defined phase. That is what I say, that every time you have to go and revisit. Is this the problem statement are we going to solve? Is this the customer needs are we going to solve? Will this solve the customer needs? Sometimes what happens, when you progress through these phases, you may slip through some of the customer needs, some of the problem statements. Your individuality will come in, your passion will come in, your vision will come in there. Then, trying to, add some add-ons, sugar-coated pictures into the prototype that you're trying to do. Always remember, you have to develop the prototype which primarily aligns to the problem statement and to the user needs. Once you're able to do that, then again, what you need to do is, and there are some tools, wireframe, paper design, digital interactive tools, 3D modeling software is all available for you to develop those prototypes. Once you prototype, very important and must thing is testing it out. And whom you need to test it out? You can select, there are 3 set of users. One is the users whom you have collected the information, whom you have interviewed, right? Whom you have observed, right? All those people, you can go and give it to them. Then they will tell, yeah, it is aligned to my needs, it's satisfying my need. And other set of users is completely a new user whom you have not even interviewed. That's a very interesting concept, because when you go and give this to the new set of users, then you will know that is it really helping them, and they will also give you a different insight, or they may tell that to you, this is exactly matching my need, this is amazing, go for it, right? So when you have this kind of the varied set of users, right, will help. And third set of users is someone, if there is an existing product is already available and competitors are using it, right, and you can actually approach some of the competitors' users, really see that, are they seeing a differentiation from the competitor product to your product? Are they seeing a value to it? So when you were able to gain the insights from the tested users, the new users, and the competitor users, right, you will gain a significant amount of insights on that. And that will help you to make a judgment whether to launch this product, or you have to go back to the design room and redesign based on the new insights that you've collected. Always remember, sometimes these insights, the user needs are time bound or situational or contextual, right? So you also need to understand those dynamics when you are ideating and prototyping and testing your product. And there are some digital tools which are available: UserZoo, usertesting.com, Looplover. These are some of the tools which you can use to test and gain the insights from your customers. And the next couple of case studies, which will be a very interesting case study, is one I want to talk about: Airbnb. Airbnb, you all know, it's like Oyo rooms in India, right? So Airbnb is the model started in US, and in sometime in the 2009 when they started. Primarily they were in the early phase of the start. Their revenue wasn't great. They were clocking a revenue of only $200 per week. And Joe Kebia, he's one of the founder. What he realized in that process was, and he did a lot of research and analysis. And it's primarily the Airbnb is like, it's like a Oyo rooms, right? So if you travel somewhere, you can book online and you can find a hotel, you can go and stay there, or any home. Some people might rent their one single room to other people also. So they will also put their ad into the Airbnb platform. And it is a very cost effective. I don't need to spend a huge amount of money. People going for conferences don't need to stay in a big 5-star hotel, huge amount of money. And it is a big help for students and as well as, some of the professionals working classes, right? So this concept was a big hit, but the company was facing a little bit of challenge on the revenue stream. So they were clocking only $200 per week. And the Joe Gabbia, when he analyzed, he went into the site and he was doing some analysis, research study, and then he found out that time they had only 40 listings. So which means if I am one of the Airbnb user, I have taken a picture of one of my room. So I used my own camera. You can remember there is a significant value addition of camera that happened in the last 10 years. So by the time I may use my mobile camera, I may take some pictures of my room and I will post it in the Airbnb, right? So, and that is how he found that, and he has seen a pattern that most of his customers, they were using in a very low, pixel camera and taking some not so good pictures and posting in the website, right? And that is one of the reason. And he sensed that people were not booking rooms because the pictures was not good, and they may feel that it is like little, non-clean and not comfortable, right? So that preference was not set for the people to book. So Paul Graham, who is actually the Y Combinator, is the founder of one of the Y Combinator, is a venture capital. They invested in the Airbnb. He completely went with a non-scalable and non-technical solution. So what he did was he went into that particular place and to the places, and he met all those customers in person, and he rented a very high pixel camera, sophisticated camera. With the customer's permissions, what he did was he took some good pictures, really good pictures, and then he uploaded into the portal, right? Then he saw some traction. When people saw, because normally as a traveler, they tend to see the pictures, how it looks good, the room is clean, tidy, everything is good. Based on that, I booked, right? So that is how they started, and they could see within a week, they were able to double their revenue. And definitely, and over a period, they became $1 billion company. And because of this pandemic, a little bit of challenge, but hopefully after pandemic also they will continue to scale up and they will scale forward. That's another example of how the design thinking, the empathy, and as well as defining the solution that has worked for companies to scale up. One other case study, the Bank of America, they have introduced a program called the Keep the Change program. This is again, is a mindset in US. So when particularly, single mother or middle class family people, when they go for purchase, right, what they do is they buy something, and they try to round up those numbers. So what happens is, even if I spend say $3.89, when they make their entry into their systems, always they have an entry, right? Because they will also put some budget and they spend it. So they have a tendency to round up the number to that $4 or $3 number, right? And they were also a little stressed because they were not able to save a huge amount of money. And what Bank of America and IDEO, I'm sure I want you guys to research about IDEO. IDEO is, one of the greatest design thinking company, which was established in 1990, and they were doing phenomenal, amazing job on a lot of design thinking work across the globe. And IDEO and Bank of America, what they did was, again, this team went onto the field. They do a lot of empathetic research. They studied with the local people. They understood their real problem as well as why they are doing it. So that nuances were understood. And beautifully, what they came up with an approach is they introduced a Keep the Change program card. So whoever is bought the American Bank of America Keep the Change program card. So for example, if I have the keep the change program card. I go to a shop, maybe I go to Starbucks, I buy a coffee, and assume the coffee is $2.79. What will happen is that will round off, eventually that will round off to $3, right? And what happens that the remaining 20, whatever that 21 cents, right, that will get deposited as a saving into your bank account. Eventually, more you spend, more you save. That's the kind of the concept that was created, and that was a big successful program. Nearly 12 million customers were enrolled into the program by the time, and they were able to, $2 billion worth of savings got created through that particular program. So that's again another case study, which again how the design thinking approach was used, and the kind of the ideation has approached and the solution has been carved out, and how that has helped the company as well as the consumers to scale up. Now, pretty much I am at the last slide of my session. How to get started? If you are an entrepreneur, you are running in a startup, how do you want to get started? Where is my starting point? I would say that you think through and identify what is the problem you want to solve. Define your problem. Don't think of solution. And we always call something called as a confirmation bias. Confirmation bias, the theory is, for example, if someone on the street while you're walking and the person is looking upwards, looking the sky, right? Person is looking the sky, eventually you also have a tendency to immediately look upward, even without asking the question why the person is looking upward. Right? Today, in the entrepreneurship area, this is what is happening. Suddenly, we see a product is successful, and we could see a similar type of product. There will be thousands of entrepreneurs lining up to develop the product. Right? So some may be successful, some may not be successful. Right? So some may vanish over a period of time, because there is always something called as a first mover of advantage. The guy who brought that new concept might have had a strong problem to solve. Right? Now, when you are copying it, you may not know that what problem you are trying to solve, but simply you are copying already a successful product. Because of your copying a successful product, you may become half successful, but you will not become the full successful. Right? So you have to think through yourself on identifying what is the problem you are trying to solve. And when you have that problem identified, then you can use the empathy tools. Please identify your target customers, consumers. Then you probably define the problem statement like I explained in the phases, and brainstorm with a group of people, and that will help you to ideate the best possible solution. Don't be judgmental at all, and don't influence with your thought process. Always be open. Entrepreneur mindset is an open mindset, right? You need to be firm on your commitment that you're driving forward, but you need to have the open mindset, because you are a risk taker, and you should have the open mindset and not being judgmental, which will help you to intake more ideas, and that will also help you to derive more solutions. Then decide a couple of points and share the solution prototype with your users, and observation with the users is very important. Take the feedback, and if there is a feedback that mandates for redesign, do not hesitate. Go for redesign, because ultimately your product need to be successful. And once you are fully confident and your users have shown the confidence on the product that you have developed, then you can successfully go and actually implement the product. Through this approach, definitely you can show a lot of success, as well as you can derive a big success in the market. I wish you all the best for all of you. I hope this session was fairly useful to all of you. And if you have any feedback, I'm at social media at Kevin George. So you can reach out to me on social media. You can follow me on social media, as well as you can share your feedback through the social media, as well as in my LinkedIn platform. Thank you very much.